We've got puddles, the rain still coming weeping down here. It's going to be wet and sticky, and it's going to be an afternoon when starting is so important. Let's have a look at the lineup for this heat number 1 of the UK final of the World Team Championship. It's going to be on the inside grid. We'll see him in a moment, Steve Gresham. And Gresham still is causing the race to be delayed. We've got Malcolm Simmons, the England skipper from Poole Pirates. He's in grid 2. Grid 3 has John Titman from Australia and Leicester. And on the outside, New Zealand's Larry Ross, skipper of the Wimbledon side. Remember, 3 points for a win, 2 for a second, 1 for a third, 16 races, conditions very dicey. This is heat 1. America, England, Australia, New Zealand. That's how they line up from the inside. Now the action. Gresham is the impatient one. And it's from the outside, Ross who leads it. Gresham's in second place, Simmons is back in third. And John Titman made a real hash of that corner. And we can see just how sticky it is as they almost missed that corner. Simmons has got back last. And it is now Ross and Gresham battling for the lead. Gresham going through on the inside there. Completely fearless. The Americans lead it. Second place is Ross, third place is Titman, and Malcolm Simmons disastrously for England, right at the back.
And last he stayed. In fact, that was the last we saw of the England captain all afternoon. John Berry, the England team manager, tell us why.
Well, Dave, really, it was a day for trappers. It was a day for gating specialists, and at number 5 at reserve we had a gating specialist. Malcolm came up to me after his first race. He said he wasn't confident and he thought that maybe Dave stood a better chance of getting out of the trap in front. So it was Malcolm's idea. I agreed with him, and this was really why.
I think it's true to say, John, Malcolm wasn't too happy about being included in the first place, and before the meeting offered to stand down.
Yes, he's had problems this year with his equipment, and I think his confidence has taken a knock. He always tends to underrate himself anyway, in fact. So I didn't take too much notice of that, and I think that I was right in not taking too much notice. After his first race, however, he's not a rider who likes those conditions, and with his loss of confidence, I felt that Dave stood a better chance.
So Malcolm Simmons, the England skipper, out of the World Cup. His place taken by the reserve, the trump card, Dave Jessup. He came in heat 6, and let's see what happens to him now.
Heat 6 in. Phil Hearn on the inside for Australia. Kelly Moran in blue, grid 2 for America, and he won his first ride in the most convincing style. Grid 3 has Mitch Shearer from New Zealand in the white helmet colour, again a race winner first time out. And England playing their trump card, hopefully. Reserve Dave Jessup on the outside in yellow and black. Heat number 6, and let's just see if Jessup's far-famed gating ability can see him through in heat 6. He's on the outside, remember, in yellow and black. He's got 2 unbeaten riders immediately on his inside on the left. Heat 6. Well, it's a very even start, and into the lead it is Shearer. Jessup coming around in second place and going around the outside of Shearer. Jessup leads it. Shearer is second. Kelly Moran going hard underneath Shearer into second place there, but Dave Jessup leads it for England. Second place is Shearer. We've lost Kelly Moran from America, and that's going to cause some problems for the Yanks. So now, is this the England revival? Jessup rode a very brave first 2 corners and is now carving them up in heat 6. Dave Jessup, world record transfer signing during the winter, and he's almost missed the corner, and his bike has stopped, and that is a fresh sensation.
So Jessup blows up again. John Berry, he hasn't really gone through a meeting this year without trouble. Was he properly prepared for this one?
Dave, as you know, there were 4 Westlake Works riders in that team, and Westlakes have been having problems this year. They've brought out a new engine, and of course the Works riders are the first ones to get those engines. The engine is very fast, but like most new things, there have been teething problems. The teething problems have just about been overcome now. Therefore, people tend to point to these teething problems and assume that they are the cause of every problem. This one wasn't. This was a broken rocker arm. Could have happened to anybody. One of those unfortunate things. In actual fact, it was a special rocker arm that David fitted himself, and it just broke. It could have happened to anybody.
The Americans had similar equipment to the English, though, John, and they didn't seem to have the same sort of problems.
No, the Americans were on last year's engines. They weren't on the new 1979 engines.
So what you're saying is the new engines aren't as reliable as the old ones?
I think you'll find that they are now, but they did have problems early on. It was nothing to do with equipment on Sunday, in my opinion. It was due to maybe a loss of confidence on one or two riders' points of view, but not equipment.
So with 3 races left, England still had an outside chance of grabbing one of the 2 qualification spots. Coming into heat number 14 to represent them, Peter Collins, their number 1 for so long. He hadn't won a race all afternoon, and this had to be his last-ditch effort.
On the inside, John Chipman from Australia. The Aussies on 14 points. Mitch Shearer from New Zealand Grid 2, they have 24. Bobby Schwartz from America, 21. Peter Collins, England, there 2 adrift, and Collins has made a good start from the outside. So too has Shearer from the inside. So it's Shearer leading it. Collins trying to change his goggles, and Collins has been pushed back into last place dramatically there in heat 14. Shearer leads it. Going round the outside, it's Schwartz for America. In 3rd place it is Tidman, and Peter Collins has dropped it. England are out of heat 14, and we wonder now if they're out of the World Cup as well.
Peter Collins, a mere shadow of the rider he used to be when we saw him dominate World Speedway back in 1976, when, of course, he won the World Individual Championship. John Berry, what has gone wrong with Peter Collins?
Well, Dave, if you'd been at Leicester on Tuesday, where he again dominated the World Championship round, he had an engine that was working for him, he had a dry night, he had a bad first ride, but once he got that over, he had his confidence back, and he was the Peter Collins of old. But I do think that we're asking too much of him. I think he's done too much riding over the last couple of years. I think that's lost the edge a little bit. These equipment problems he's had has sapped a lot of confidence. But really, I think that the fixtures and the pile-up with the fixtures has just put too much pressure on him.
So he seems to ride pretty well for himself, John. I mean, is that a coincidence, or is it possible that maybe you're not motivating him in the correct way in the England team?
Well, of course, obviously, that's a question that I'm not in a position to answer. That's a question that other people must answer. But he's been having his problems all through, and I think now they're beginning to get this engine right, and it's a very fast engine when it's right.
So, of course, the England team had to go to Denmark on the Friday. They had to come back in and ride on the Sunday and do the big world individual meetings earlier this week. Now, I mean, who's to blame for this fixture congestion? They must be getting stale.
Well, I think that's quite true. I think the BSPA must be responsible for some of the criticism. I think the World Controlling Authority, the FIM, tries to cram too much into the fixtures now. It's one of those things. In order to get the progressions, then we must get these things in order. But I do think that we're reaching a stage where we're asking too much of riders.
But, of course, you're on the management committee of the British Speedway Promoters Association, so presumably you'll be having something to say about that in future planning.
Yes, but there is a balance. You see, we also, quite apart from asking these riders to ride internationally, we asked them to come back on the Saturday after having raced in Denmark on the Friday and having the World Team Cup on the Sunday. We asked them to race on a Saturday night as well, and I think that was just too much to expect.
So obviously the system's got to be changed. So with 2 races left, England in a desperate position. They had to come out in heat 15 and head home the Americans. New Zealand, remember, they're already home and dry, 2 to qualify, and England's Gordon Kennett must finish ahead of America's Kelly Moran in heat number 15.
Moran's in 2nd place. Gordon Kennett goes through the middle of them, but it's a beautiful second corner from Kelly Moran from the United States of America. Gordon Kennett trying so very hard to get back on terms, trying to squeeze under him, and he's going to do it. And he's gone under him so hard. Moran fighting back. They're going almost sideways on. Tremendous action there. Kennett battling so very hard. Moran leads it. Gordon Kennett, my word, the boys having a go. Just look at this action in these conditions. And then Kennett trying the outside run. He'll go wide. Look at that, in mid-corner. He tried to adjust his goggles. Unbelievable. Moran takes his helmet off. This is unbelievable action. Kennett without a face mask. And Moran, and look at him go. He must be blinded. He must surely be blinded now because he's got a face full. But he's still battling. Moran in front. Gordon Kennett, well, he's ridden his heart out for England, but I don't think he's going to do it. Over the line, it's going to be Moran. Kelly Moran wins it for America. Gordon Kennett in in second place, third place there.
So despite a tremendously courageous ride from Gordon Kennett, England go out of the World Cup. And the question must be asked, John Berry, were they the best men for the job?
They were the men selected by the management committee. As you know, we had a management committee meeting afterwards. The management committee completely endorsed the team that they selected. They agreed with me that it was the best team for the job, and they agreed that that is the team that they would have selected again.
The fact remains that on form and record this year, the riders that were selected were by no means the best this year. Can we please understand why the riders who were in form seem to have been overlooked?
Well, everybody considers themselves amateur team managers. I could have picked a better team than Ron Greenwood to play football. We all consider that we're better than the people set up to do the job, Dave. Obviously, you think that you're better. A lot of other people think they're better. The management committee stick by their decision. I stick by the decision. I'm a member of the management committee, and we think we picked the best man for the job.
John, we appreciate the England job you do is for free. You're not paid. It's not a paid job. Can we ask you then what your future is as the England manager? Because there was a fair amount of controversy and varying reports after the meeting that you were going to quit. Now, what is the situation?
Well, the situation is, Dave, that the press loves sensationalism. They made a story out of absolutely nothing. I'm not a quitter. I shall finish at the end of the year because I've had a good run, but I don't like to go out when I'm down. I shall come back and I shall get the England team sorted out by the end of the year, and then I feel that I've done my bit.
John Berry, thank you very much.